As you know, my name is Kyneton the Genius, and finally we've come to the last day, day 10 of our Python in 10 days. And I'd like to thank you for being with me. If you want, you can leave me a comment. I'd like to talk with you personally because I'll personally respond to you. And if you want, you can have my personal number to speak with me. If that will be fine. Today we are going to be talking about something very important. We are going to be talking about working with files. We are going to be seeing how to read files, how to write files, how to create new files, how to create directories, all these using Python program. If you are joining for the first time, hit the subscribe button. Just smash that subscribe button below this video. There's a red subscribe button. In this case, if you subscribe, you don't miss any update when a new lesson is made. And also there's a bell icon beside the subscribe button. That's the notification icon. Click on it as well so you get notified when a new lesson is made as well. So we are going to be talking about reading and writing the files in Python. If this has been informative for you, leave me a comment, or also like the video and share it around. So let's get right into the classroom and let's start working with files in Python. So as usual, you'll need to go to www.kynetonthegenius.com/Python and you can see a list of items that we are almost complete in Python in 10 days. This is day 10 of Python in 10 days. If you've come this far, thumbs up to you. You are doing great. If you move through this smoothly, then you are ready to move up all the way to data science in 10 days. I hope data science in 10 days will not be as challenging. Challenging at all. It will be a bit more challenging than what we have in Python in 10 days, but I hope we are going to make it through, as I'm going to break it down very easy for everyone to follow. I'd like to remind you, if you've not subscribed, hit on the subscribe button below this video so you don't miss any updates, because I might make some easier modules. I can remake some lessons I've already done before in an easier way. So subscribe so that you kind of motivate me and also get updates when a new lesson is made. So what we are going to do now, we are going to go into file and IO, and then we are going to talk about file operation in this last day, day 10. So I'm going to just click on files and IO, and I'm going to just scroll down to the beginning of it. So one thing you know what file is. You also know what IO is. You know what a folder is or a directory is. We are going to be talking about folders and directory later on in this class. So now when we have IO, we have something like the keyboard. This keyboard you have here is an input device. You enter data by typing on the keyboard, but when you want to get some output, you look at the screen and you see what the output is. These are called standard input outputs. So for instance, if I take what I have here, let me just copy it out there and paste it here and run it. This is what we have. We have some inputs and we have some outputs. Now I can also get input from the keyboard using the input function. I've talked about it before. So instead of hard coding my name here, I can actually say input and then please enter your name. So in this case, the name is going to be entered at runtime, right? So that it will be the name that is entered on the input device that is transferred to the standard output. So if I run this code at this time, the system is going to wait for me to enter an item, my name on the keyboard. So at this point, if I say my name by typing my name, Kyneton the Genius. So you can see that it says my name is Kyneton the Genius. Takes that input I entered from my keyboard and displays it on the standard output, and that is the monitor. Alright, so you can talk about raw input that was available in Python 2, but now in Python 3 it's not there, so don't worry about it. How do we create a file? Okay. One thing I would like to mention is that creating a file and working with files in Python is very easy. To create a file, you simply use the open command. When you create a file, call the open function. The open function executes and returns a file or a descriptor or pointer to this file, or a handle to this file. So if I say something like open, and I say the directory d/day10 / let's say test.txt. So let's start with this just a text file, and I want to open this file for reading, right? Let's see what happens. Reading means you're opening files so that you can read what is in there. So if I look at the folder day10 right here, you can see that there is nothing inside this folder called day10, right? So when you're opening a file for reading, I'm executing it now, is expecting that that file should be existing in the system so that you can open it and read the content. But now the file is not there, it is actually going to return an error. So the way to open a file or to create a new file is to open it in the write mode. So open it, telling it you are opening a new file to write something into it. Opening a file that doesn't exist. So I'm going to scroll up at this time. So if I use write at this point, it's going to create this file for me. So if I execute by running this code, it's going to run perfectly. And if I open back this folder, you can see that a file has been created in there. So what I'm going to try now is to try to use a directory to the name of the file and see if it will create this directory and also create the file as well. So I'm going to say day10/demo and /text.txt. I'm going to run it at this point, and let's see. We can see that there is an error because the directory does not exist. We are going to be talking about creating a new directory in the next lesson. All right, so we are talking about creating a file and not a directory. Now we are going to try to create this file. While this file is existing, we are creating this file again and see what happens. So if I execute again, you can see that it executes correctly. So what happens is it's going to override this file that was there. Because it's the same name, it's not going to give you any warning, it's going to overwrite it. Now we are going to be talking about how to check if file exists before you start creating a new file. So now you've learned about two file modes. One is a read, R, and the second one is a write, the write, W. The write command creates a new file even if that file is there or not. It creates a file. The read command assumes that that file is there and tries to open it and so that you can read the content. We also have other modes, although we are going to be focusing on the read and the write. We also have W, okay, we've mentioned it. Open a file for both read and write. We have R plus, open a file for reading and writing. Okay, in this case, more like you want to edit this file. Okay, so most times we can actually use that. WB plus, anytime you see B, that's binary, so I recommend you don't worry about it. Then we have A, which means open a file to append so that you can append something in it. The file pointer is placed at the end of the file so that anything you are writing into a file opened in the append mode is going to be written at the end of that file as an additional content of the file. And a few other ones are right there as well. There are a number of things you also need to know, and that is about attributes of a file. When you open a file, what can you do with it? You can also check the attributes, the size of the file mode, the name of the file, the path, and so on and so forth. So let's try to examine the attributes of this file that we opened now. So I'm going to kind of print out the file modes at this time. So let me just take this and I'm going to paste it right here. And instead of saying data here, I'm going to just say day10. All right, so open a file called tutorial.txt. Actually create a file called tutorial.txt. Now I'm going to print out the name of the file, the attribute, whether it's opened or closed. So that will be either true or false. Is a file closed? File dot close or my file dot close, depending on the name you give. So file mode is file dot mode as well. So if I execute this code, it's going to create that file, day10 tutorial.txt. Right, so let's see. So you can see I'm opening it as read or as binary, reading in binary mode. I'm just going to open it for write so that it could actually work. So running this code, opening this file in the write mode. Now it tells us name of the file. It tells us the name. It tells us is file closed, false, because the file is open. What is the file mode? The file mode is W. Now, if you want to close this file, you can actually say my file dot close. Actually, I'm going to, after reading the attributes, I'm going to just say my file dot close. I think that's how it works. My file dot close. Sorry, there's a typo. Okay, so this is what we have. My file dot close. Okay. My file dot close. This operation is going to close this file. So at the end of the line, if I print out to check if the file is open or closed, I can just say is file closed. So at this point, I'll expect it to tell me yes, file is closed. Then, and I'm going to attach at this point. I'm going to add file dot closed. Sorry, I'm going to use this the file name. My file dot closed. All right, so it's a function. Okay, so I'm going to convert this to string. Let's see. My file is closed, so it's not callable. I'm going to remove this. So we are printing string, so I'm going to just convert it to string. Because if we are using print statement, it's expecting a string, so we are going to convert it to string. So I'm going to run it at this point. I would like to remind you to type out this code yourself, change up things a bit and see how it is. So at the end of the day, when I executed file.close, it tells me file is closed, is true, all right? All right, let's now go to the fun stuff now. How do we get the content of a file and actually view the content of the file? So first you need to open it in the read mode so that you can read items from the file. The read mode takes an optional parameter which represents the number of characters to read from the file. If the number of characters is not specified, then the entire file is read. So in this case, let's focus on reading the entire file. For example, the tutorial.txt contains a list of names, and we want to display this list, everything from this file on the output. So let's do something. What I'm going to do at this point is to take a list of names and put right inside this file. So let's go to open this file, this tutorial.txt, and put a list of names inside this file, and so that we can read this content of this file and display it in the output. So let's say Kyneton. All right, so let's say we have 5 names in the file. I'm just going to save everything and close it. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is to first just take out this. Let's not complicate matters. We are opening this file in the read, so I'm going to change this to read. Okay, and the next thing I'm going to do is to my file.read. Okay, so my file.read, this read method reads an item from the file, actually reads everything from this file. So, and we are going to print it. So, of course, we are going to assign it name is equal to my file.read, and I'm going to just print out whatever is read name, and I'm going to close this file. My file is closed. Alright, so see what is happening here. I'm opening this file in the read mode. I'm reading some items from this file, and reading some items from this file and saving it into a variable called name, and then I'm printing out this content out to the screen at this point. So I'm going to execute this code at this point, and let's see if it works. So you can see everything inside this file has been read and the file has been closed. So we open exactly what we do when we write. When we're working with the file, we open a new file, we write something inside, save it back, and close it. Perfectly okay. That is what we've done programmatically with Python very, very easily. Now, you can also specify how much items you want to read from this file. So let's assume we want to read, let's say, 15 characters from this file. I can just put in 15 here. So hopefully it may just read only the first line of this character. I don't know if it's going to be more. It's going to take this name, maybe. So let me just print. Let me just run it, and let's see. So you can see that it reads only the first item. So the read method requires not mandatory, requires a number of characters to read. If not specified, it's going to read everything from this file and save it into a variable. Now we also have the read line method. So read line reads a line of text from a file. So at this point, let's try read line. Read line at this point. So remember, I entered items in this file line by line. So read line likely is going to read only one single line from this file. Let me clear this, and then I'm going to run it at this point. So read line reads a single line from this file. So what of read lines? Read lines. So in this case, you are reading all the items, all the lines in the file, and saving it into a list. So I'm going to run it at this point, and yes, so you can see what is happening now. So it reads everything in this file. At the end of each line, there is also a new line character that it reads at this point. So it's adding it into a list, as you can see right here. So it reads the item in a line, reads a new line, reads a second line plus a new line, and reads everything and save it into a list. Not just a text or string, but a list of items. Is for each of the line there is for each of the line is a list item in the list, right? Good. All right, so let's now talk about writing into a file. To write into a file, you need to use the write command. So that is very intuitive. When you want to read from a file, get the content of the file, you use the read command. When you want to write into a file, use the write command and simply specify what do you want to write into the file. I'd like to recommend we open this file in append mode and then write something into it. So I'm going to kind of tweak. I'm going to kind of tweak this code I have on my website so that we actually write as in append mode to write it at the end of the line of the file. Because if we don't open it in append mode and we open it in the write mode, it's going to actually overwrite the existing file. So let's open it in append mode. Okay, so we have tutorial 2. Okay, so maybe you are opening a new file, that is fine. And we are writing items into this file. I would like to run it at this point, and let's see, run. Okay, so everything worked fine. Let's go check. So, oh, nothing happened. So what happened here? Refresh. So you're supposed to create a file called, okay, created it in the data folder. Actually, I want it in the 10 right here. What's happening? So this is where I want it. I want it in the same folder. So I'm going to run it at this point. Again, it's going to execute perfectly. And if we go back to our folder and we can see that tutorial 2 has been created, I'm going to just open it and you can see that the same thing we wanted to write into this file has been written into this file line by line. So what I want us to do now is to open this file, the first file that contains names. Let's open it in append mode and write in items, and let's make sure that these items are written at the end of the file. So I'm opening tutorial for writing. Wait. I'm opening the tutorial, the TSC file for writing, and this time in the append mode. So I'm going to just specify, instead of W, I'm going to specify A. All right. Okay. A in lowercase. Okay. So let me start by adding a new line. So I'm going to say slash n. All right. So let's execute this program and let's see if it's going to append all these items at the end of the line. So I'm going to just run this at this point. So if that works fine, that is great. And then we are going to move to the next part. So let's say tutorial. So you can see that it added 3 more lines at the end of the file, and that is so good. So everything has been working. What have you learned? How to create a file, how to read a file, how to write a file, how to append the file modes, file attributes, and stuff like that. Let's now talk about working with directories. So if you just go down, you can just go to maybe file operations. Yeah, file operations. What is this? I'm just gonna close this. All right, so there are 3 things we are going to be talking about in file operations: renaming and deleting a file, working with directories, creating a directory, deleting a directory, and stuff like that, working with other Python methods for files. There's a module called the OS module and provides you with methods for performing various operations on file. This time there are files on your drive, on your local directory. You want to work with them, you want to change the name, you want to manipulate them. You can use the OS module methods provided in the OS module. So at this point, I'm going to simply import OS. Okay. So let's start with renaming a file. I recommend, let's see. So we have test.txt right here. We also have tutorial.txt. Let's rename test.txt to my test.txt and let's see. So I'm going to say os.rename and specify the 10 test.txt. Okay, so I rename it to my test.txt. And this is about how to rename. Let me execute it. Remember, I didn't specify the path here, but let's execute it just to make sure everything works or don't work, because I actually know that you need to specify the full path of that file. So I'm going to just say the 10 slash. So I'm renaming it, specifying the path, but just changing the name. So I'm going to run it at this point. Everything worked fine. So if I go back to check, you can see my test.txt. I've renamed this file now. Remove a file. Let's just remove this file as well. So I'm going to say os. Okay, let me just use it in the same line. os.remove. And I'm going to just take out this. All right. So in this case, we are trying to remove this file or delete this file. Let's just use the right word there. We want to delete this file from the disk. So I'm going to just run it at this point. After now, I'm going to check whether that file is still there, and we can see that that file is no longer there. That my test.txt is no longer there. Play around with these things, try to delete other files. Make sure you are careful not to delete very important files. Maybe create some dummy files and then delete. Let's now talk about working with directory. How do we create a directory? We use a make directory, make directory mkdir. So os.mkdir and specify the thing, and let's call it our directory. Okay, just call it my folder. That's what I'm gonna call it, my folder. So I'm just gonna scroll up and I'm gonna run it at this point, and after running it, I'm gonna go check if it has created this my folder. Meanwhile, let's just comment out this one because that's where the problem is coming from. So we expect it to create a new folder called my folder, and if I go back there, you can see that it creates a new folder called my folder. We also have chdir to change the current directory. So in this case, we are talking about current directory where your project is residing. So in this case, maybe we can just forget about it. Display the current working directory. So let's use let's display the current working directory. OIS.get or cwd. So you can see where we have our files right here. So if you create a new file without specifying the path, it's going to create it in this path. So we have two places. We have the users my project day 10, actually here, day 10 right there. So we have remove directory, actually use it to delete a directory. So we can actually delete that directory we created. So we have os.rmdir. So specify the slash day 10 slash my folder. So just to check that that folder is right there. So we have my folder right here. And if I execute this code, you can see that that folder is going to disappear. Yeah, so you can see it disappears because it's executed the line. Right, so we have a number of things. In this case, I would like to recommend you try to do all this yourself. Try to play around with all this. For instance, return the nice line from the file each time it is called. File does read lines, the size you want to read, and so on and so forth. So this is how we complete Python in 10 days. It's been an exciting journey from day 1 all the way to day 10. It's been exciting, and we are now ready to move into data science. If you've come this far, again, thumbs up, congrats to you. Don't give up because sometimes it's going to be a bit challenging. But I would like to say that if you don't give up and you continue to weather the storm, to continue to put the necessary effort, with time you find out that it becomes easier and easier and easier. So just stay with me. Let's do this together. Again, if you have challenges, let me know by leaving me a comment in the comment box below this video. If you've not subscribed, subscribe. That is great. And if you have friends who would like to join us in data science in 10 days, invite them by sharing this video in their social network profile. If you want, I would like to recommend that you go to maybe play around with some of the advanced topics. If you go to pythonthegenesis.com/python, let me just show you. I'll show you a few advanced topics you might want to pay. Remember, you can buy me a coffee because I make this lesson for free. So you can have sending emails, OOP, MapReduce, exception handling. These are things you can try out by yourself. It's not compulsory. You can do data science without all this, but you can try it yourself. Sending emails, you may not. Maybe you can forget about it because it requires an email configuration. Also, try out this by yourself. Try out the quiz and stuff like that. So I'd like to thank you for viewing. I'd like to thank you for being there. Let's do this together. And we see in the next part on the next series, which is data science in 10 days. I remain kind and the genius. And yeah. Thank you very much for being there as well.